Well, good morning, students of class 9. You are welcome back to the economics class. So today we are doing how is land distributed between the farmers of Palampur. So far we have learned about the composition of society, so types of people and what they work, what they do in the village. So various type of economic activities they do. Let's talk about distribution of land among the people in Palampur. Here in Palampur, not all have sufficient land. All the people do not have sufficient land to grow food crops for cultivation, to grow food crops. About 1/3 of 450, we have already learned what is this 450? The families lived in Palampur. Among 450 families, 1/3, that is 150, are landless. Landless means they do not have the land to cultivate the field, to grow. So 1/3 of 450 families are landless, and most of these landless are Dalits. Dalit means backwards, who lived in one corner. Hey, ladka, if you want to talk, you get out. So most of them are Dalits, who live in one corner of the village. As we have already learned, there are some Dalits also. So they are very poor and they do not have their own land to grow food crops. They work in others' field, in farmers' field. 240 families have small plots of land. 240 families, they have small plots of land and less than 2 hectares in size. Their land, the size of the land is less than 2 hectares. And cultivation on such a small land, and 2 hectares of land, doesn't bring much income to the farmer's family. So 240 families, they have the land, but it is very small. So cultivation there, doing cultivation in such a small plot of land, doesn't bring sufficient income to the farmer's family. So that means they had to work somewhere else also in order to add income to their families. They cannot depend on the land only for survival. They have to work somewhere else in order to add income. So now here 60 families, now after all this, 60 families own means they have large or medium farmland. Only 60 families are quite prosperous, quite rich, because they have big plots of land or medium plots of land. Some of the farmers, some of the families even have more than 10 hectares. Some of the families have more than 10 hectares of land. That means they earn a lot of money, they grow a lot of food grains. So in this way, the distribution of land is not equal in Palampur. In Palampur, all the families do not have equal access to the field or equal plots of land. There is a lot of difference between different families. Some families have got very big plots of land, some have medium, and some have very less, some do not have lands. So in this way, the distribution of land in Palampur is not equal. So unequal distribution. So now compare this Palampur with the villages around our neighborhood. So many of the villages, they have the same type of situation. The societies, they own, some of the societies they own, some families they own big plots of land, some they have small plots of land, some have medium plots of land, many of them do not have their own land. Similar type of unequal distribution of land can be seen around our villages. So all the families do not have equal size of land. So there is inequality. Now in our next class we will talk about, to be continued, who will provide the labor in such a big plot of land, such as here we have learned 60 families. Some of them have more than 10 hectares. In this big plot of land, big area, big farmlands, 10 hectares, who will provide the labor? The family alone cannot produce in such a big plot of land. they need to hire some labor. And who will provide the labor? Who will provide the labor? So it's very simple. The landless people, who are mostly Dalits, 150 families, those who do not have the land to grow food grains, they work in these big plots of land which is owned by the rich 60 families. So these landless people, or the Dalits, or those who do not have the land, they will provide labor. They have to work in others' big landlords' farm. So we'll talk about that in our next class. So that's all for today. Thank you for your presence and your attention. Now we'll continue some more in our next class. That's all for today.